nursery. Travels all over the state of West Virginia working. He's done Wintergreen Foundation talks, and he is a wonderful photographer. So without further ado, Doug.
And he's past president of this chapter, so he's another retread.
Joining the club.
Yeah?
Congratulations. Thank you.
You see, David?
Yeah, now I've got the whole screen and I've got you. You could actually come over a little, yeah, that far over, you're fine.
Okay, well, thank you for asking me to share some pictures, information and such. And so this spring I got a call asking about doing a presentation, and the suggested topic was native plants in the garden and lots of pictures. So I'm gonna talk about native plants in the garden, and I have a lot of pictures. And hopefully I'll wrap this up about 3:30 this afternoon. So just hang on, we've got pizza coming at noon.
Doug's tree.
First of all, I've been a member many years, and right back here, Plants for Members, that's one of the best programs ever, and so we'll just start here. This is the Gables Early Bird that is listed back here. And then another one, and this is a Plants for Member probably 15 years ago, so they're 6 to 8 feet tall now and bloom without fail. Every year loaded. Okay, it was Early Bird, and then the second one that I noticed back here is Janet Blair. And does anyone know who Janet Blair was? That's what lots of these hybridizers name these plants after family members and where they're from and this and that. I looked up Janet Blair, and yeah, she was a very famous and very beautiful actress from the 1940s for decades. So it's a fitting name for a very beautiful plant. And is this totally in focus here? Okay, so those two plants are sitting back there, and they're both good doers. Here's where we were mid-August, and this is Joe Pieweed. If you've got room, and native plants, you can plant them in a balcony plot or on a much ground as you have. But I love Joe Pieweed. Here's some remnant cardinal flower here, and then this is mist flower, which is in the Joe Pieweed genus, but it's a very low native perennial, kind of a sky blue, and then we've got ferns sprinkled in. So this is just going to be lots of stuff here. Right now, this is doll's eyes. For the appearance of those berry clusters, look like baby doll eyes, and the backdrop of a fern changing into into fall plumage. But doll's eyes, knee-high to a thigh-high plant, white flowers, but this is the show right here is the fall appearance. And our native azaleas, lots of them have beautiful fall color. This is the pinkster flower. But this is part history lesson here. So growing up, I read lots of garden books, magazines, and of course all through adulthood, you're reading books, magazines. So in my used bookstore years, I saw 1943 through 1946 bound editions called The Home Garden. Well, this is the Victory Garden magazine that came out in World War II. And so I know the Victory Garden, you know, raising vegetables and such, so I bought this. Well, little did I know, this 4 years of magazines covers almost any gardening topic, type of gardening, this and that you can think of. And frankly, I don't need internet. I have this for answers. So what I've done is, and I look at these, you know, a handful of times a year from my chair, and as I look through these articles by these authors, what this is their articles from 80 years ago versus looking out my window at my gardening history of 30 plus years.
Mhm.
So here was the first edition, and this is the spirit of the Victory Garden. But look here, this is not tomatoes and corn. Here's mountain laurel and an article on mountain laurel. And as we go through this, you know, we have lots of media out there, but how many of these topics are covered today? I mean, some are, some not a lot, but here's a typical cover, and then here's the editor. So I did a similar talk with the New York chapter pre-pandemic, and being in Long Island, lots of these folks knew these people because it's New York, New England, New Jersey folks, but I think we know T.A. Weston's contribution to azaleas, of course Donald Wyman, and Montague Free. I don't know who that is, but his monthly editorials, you could print them today on the topics he's going over and his opinions and such. Okay, so anyway, there's the group bringing you this magazine right there. So let's see what we got. Part of their mission is introducing new products. Butternut squash. Well, right here's last year's haul of butternut squash, which is a mainstay for our cold cellar. Check these prices. P for M is awesome, but now when they go down to a quarter each, we'll talk. So, but look what's offered. Maximum, Catabians, Carolinianum, and Mountain Laurel. Of course, now that quarter you gotta buy 100, but still pretty good deal. So here's Maximum from our garden. Here's Pocahontas County, West Virginia hillside with mountain laurel growing over several acres. And the thing is, when you have large tracts of mountain laurel or most anything, they're generally white, but look here. Here's one throwing some pink. So thanks to hybridizers, namely Richard James and others, you keep sowing seed, culling out populations, here's what you get. And this is a petaloid form of mountain laurel. This is Osbo Red, one of the old timers, but mountain laurel for us, that's the month of June. So here's color in the garden in the middle of June, foggy morning. And here's my mountain laurel patch. And so Sarah back there is in here somewhere. Just outstanding mountain laurel cultivars. You could just go bonkers on those.
Would you like a pointer?
No, I can't hold those steady. Shake. And our mountain laurel have a good bit of lichen coverage, and last year, blue-gray gnatcatcher, who uses lichens and spider webs in the nest, built a nest in our mountain laurel. Here's next year's flowers ready to go through winter and bloom the following season. How about shrubs for shady places? Well, again, here's rhododendron maximum, and it is terrific in shade. Where would I go now to get a 3-gallon rhododendron maximum? Does anyone have, there's just lots of these things not available.
Try American Nursery up in the Baltimore, Maryland area. There's a huge native plant nursery, and they're selling a lot.
Right, they're a specialty now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and maximum, that's our state flower in West Virginia. It is a terrific plant, and again, like the mountain laurel, driving around lots of areas. In Fayette County, that's where the New River runs through. Anyway, these are spent structures, and this is on the way out. Just a power line of these plants, but sticking out like a sore thumb was this plant just coming into full bloom. And check these colors versus the typical. So I don't know the genetics that's going on there. And just after I found this, some of my assignments switched because I, at some point, hope to get some of these sent to Carl Bernardi to try maybe grafting. But this is outstanding plant, and just a bit later. So, and again, a second article in another year about rhododendron maximum, the largest and most showy rhododendron, native rhododendron. Here's cranberry glades, and when they're on, they are on. And the maximum always has the green blotch on the dorsal petal. Now, with rhododendron maximum, hemlock, northern hardwood community in these ravines, you also have specialized plants, and Small's tway blade is a native orchid, 3 to 6 inches tall, and grows almost exclusively beneath rhododendron maximum. This is not an orchid that you would probably give your prom date, but it's still very beautiful in your own right, in its own right. Birds that like that habitat are Swainson's warbler, and this is a bit unique. Its main habitat are the cypress swamps of the coastal southeast and rhododendron glens in Appalachia. So talk about a disparity of habitats, but sprinkled through from Pennsylvania through the Appalachian Mountains are pockets of Swainson's warblers, and then more commonly through the mountains of the Virginias, black-throated blue warbler and black-throated green warblers. And the other part of rhododendron maximum is, in our state, they grow in about every county, but these classic streamside sites is some of the beautiful spots that you can go to see these plants. This is just a short walk from the hotel at Blackwater Falls State Park. This is not the Blackwater Falls, but another cataract, and just a gorgeous rhododendron setting. And then this is down in Mercer County, southern West Virginia, near Princeton. This is Brush Creek Falls, and this stream is lined with rhododendrons also. And I showed this picture at the Nursery Landscape Association when I did a talk on mulching. And if you want to see the root system of a sycamore tree, right there's your chance. So no mulching necessary. And Jean and I are kind of lily fanatics. Here we are, lily and canadense, and wintergreen sells, or used to sell these. They had a propagation committee there that did native plants in the wintergreen area, and they have done very well. here's the Canada lily with the drooping candelabra look. And just tops, they're head high, they're just outstanding garden feature. And then here's Turk's Cap Lily along the scenic highway in Pocahontas County in its native setting. Again, these bulbs are from Wintergreen Nature Foundation, and here they are with gladiolus, and all these lilies are great hummingbird plants, so hummingbirds work these while they're blooming. And then, oh, you need berries in the winter, so here's Donald Wyman with hollies. And so here's a yellow-bellied sapsucker feasting on deciduous holly, and the deciduous hollies are striking, very diminutive flowers. That's not a big deal, but come end of the year, this is where we are now, full foliage with the berries, and we'll get visitors come by, but the robin, by Thanksgiving, here's what we have out in the wild and in our garden. And I like these for Thanksgiving decor because by Christmas they're usually have dropped or been consumed. But deciduous hollies, and you need a male and a female plant for them. And again, they will be 8 to 10 feet tall over 20 years or more. Then here's I guess you would say a leading expert, Guy Nearing, has an article on American holly. And again, the American hollies are terrific. They're native to our area and a common understory in our woods. I have folks that every year I take my holly clippings in December so that they can decorate in their homes. Light snow just sets them off. Heavier snow just sets them off. So snow and holly, you can't get a better combination. And again, the American hollies, in my experience, are not primary bird food sources, but February through March, nothing else to eat, bad weather, and it's nice having that available for songbirds. And this is part native, part unnative. So, witch hazels. This is vernalis, which is more south central plant, but we're going to look at our Hamamelis virginiana, our native witch hazel here. So right now it's fall decorating season. Here's our American holly, and then this gold still has a lot of leaves, but that's our native witch hazel coming into bloom late October through very heavy killing frost, late October through much of November. If you drive and see patches of yellow in woodlands, it's probably native witch hazel. But again, given a spot in the garden, they're quite showy in their own right. Blooming plant in November, so very nice, and against the blue sky. And then here's our Asian witch hazels. Many are very fragrant. I know we never see the first flowers, we smell them. You walk out the door, the witch hazels are in bloom, so it's time to go over and look at them. Tough as nails, it can snow on them, frost. They're out late January through early March. And the light yellow is Luna. This darker one is Magic Fire. There's just a whole list of witch hazels that can be, and where you have flowers, even though it may be February, you're going to have bugs. Where you have bugs, you're going to have birds. So this is a little ruby-crowned kinglet working this witch hazel here, picking up little bugs here and there. So they're great. Not this, our only one species native in this area, but the non-native ones are good. Okay, back to native things. Probably my favorite native landscape tree is going to be serviceberry. It's a tree that has been named up and down its range with whatever people associate it with. Shadberry, serviceberry, sarvis is a corruption of serviceberry. So in our area it's called sarvis tree because it blooms when the itinerant preachers could get back into the Appalachian backcountry to do services, weddings, funerals, etc. So this announces, well, roads are more passable and super tree. And my favorite part about them is the copious berry production and the cedar waxwings in particular. They don't know the week they're ripe, they know the second they are ripe. And this is a mating ritual of the male feeding the female food. And how about photography? So, you know, folks like to have for for articles and just their own hobbies, garden portraiture. Here's a solid black background, which allows you just to have your subject in the picture. And so that's a sheet of black velvet that I carry around, and certain times set that up, take the pictures. Now, said this is going to work great on birds, just to have that songbird with a black background. Well, the thing is, you have to have the bird perch in front of the background, not on the background. So, and 1 foot below this is a dish of mealworms and a perfectly good perch. Every time, on the background to the mealworms out. So after a while, we kind of got that straightened up. You know, you please land on the perch, and there we go. So those black backgrounds, that's a nice technique. Little trying with the animated people. And then you don't need black if you've got a wave of color in behind the subject. That makes a good background for this viceroy butterfly here. And then how many people were at the Orlando White Arboretum at the Blandy Experiment Farm a number of years back? So here's hybridizing, how to do what many of us have done for years, make our own crosses step by step. And who was at Wintergreen to hear Dr. Epps talk on pollination of native azaleas? And once you start looking at these pictures, bees, you know, the honeybees, bumblebees and things do not pollinate this. Here is the pollen being deposited on the wings of a butterfly as it moves around and around. Here's our pollen deposited, just like she said, and just as she found in her studies. And then here we've got anthers with pollen being deposited. Here's a stigma receiving pollen, and so what she found or told us seemed to be true, and for a seemingly dull subject, that was one of the best talks we've had, and then it made me start watching. And these are some of my hybrids over the years here, and one that I liked was Avocet crossed with our native Atlanticum, Here's an avocet, however, it's in fall plumage, because it's normally the color of these flowers over here. But this is avocet and Atlanticum crossed, following Orlando White's method. Here's some more hybrids. And then now, here we go. Here's Guy Nearing on how to grow good rhododendrons. And that's one of his hybrids named Windbeam, which is what we call our nursery, Windbeam Way. Another plant for members, Fantastica. And then here's a sea of maidenhair fern beneath this. And so ferns don't have flowers, but they have very attractive fiddlehead stage, and each species has its own fiddlehead. This is the maidenhair fiddlehead. So what if you want to go and get some ferns and grow them? Where are you going to get your directions? Here's the maidenhair fern. Well, there you are. Another article on ferns. This is cinnamon fern, growing in Canaan Valley wetlands. It's wonderful in the garden. Here it is at our place. And then these are where the spores are formed. These are sterile. And then these are the spore structures, spore forming structures. And that comes out when our rhododendrons are blooming and all. And then that fern is waist high, sometimes bigger, and not to be left out. This little guy right here is maidenhair spleenwort, which gets 3 to 4 inches tall, native in our cool, rocky hillsides. So you can have a fern garden and have a wonderful garden. Here's different fiddleheads. This is netted chain fern, cinnamon fern, ebony spleenwort. They're all different, and that's what I call my fern bloom. Here's royal fern and later stage of fiddlehead after a rainfall. Okay, so back to growing these good rhododendrons. Well, my property had absolutely no trees anywhere near the house, so you're starting in with the group, coming to meetings, and you're getting these plants for members. I'm not going to set them out in the cornfield, so I built this structure here to give some shade and just to get these plants up and growing while trees are being planted, among other things. And these little guys, see here, they're getting ready to be set out. Just a pergola with some shade cloth, doing good. And that's in the mid-80s. Now we're gonna fast forward with many more meetings, many more plants, and this soil, the only reason plants died was probably climate issues, hardiness. Everything in this soil grew gangbusters, so that turned into this. Here's our structure right here on the side of this picture. And that turned into that. There's the same structure. So things do grow, and the plants from here and other places, good. This is Camel's Gold right here. And now look at all these trees that have grown in 40 some years. Melrose Flash, that's a P for M. Caroline, P for M. This is little red guy is Riley's Lowboy. That's a Mason-Dixon P for M plant. And the deep purple that I obtained from a gentleman up in northern Pennsylvania years ago. And back to our native plants, this is wild petunia, and it grows in drier areas of West Virginia, and much of the east and northeast. Grows over near Paint Bank, if you've ever been over in that part of Virginia that borders Monroe County. Anyway, wild petunia, and it has nothing to do with the petunia family, but this just showed up in our gravel pathway one year, and so a single plant now is with the rhododendrons, it's with the ferns, it's with everything. So ants or somebody's spreading them around. It's not, Davetta and I aren't planting them all over the place. And here's our gravel pathway just becoming a wild petunia showcase, and then these are types of things you can pull them and they're gone. They don't run you out of the country. Early wildflowers, so once March hits, things are going to start happening at our place. And this is celandine poppy. It's a poppy family, a wild poppy. And with time it self-sows and puts on quite a show. Probably our favorite early bird is a bloodroot. If you break the root, the sap is bright red. Sanguinaria, sanguine, referring to blood. And again, now you're going to see lots of cases of a couple plants set out, toss in time, and the things are all over the place. So here's bloodroot in the rock path, and again, I did not sit there and put each one of the, whoop, here's more a few years later, and this is happy bloodroot right here. Spring beauties, lots of these things, with asking, with group functions, with family properties, you can get a few of these. I'm not talking about wholesale wiping out populations. Spring beauty, and this is one that I call a hands and knees plant. You walk by their spring beauty, well, get down and have a seat, or get down at its level and get this view of spring beauty. What about trap lilies? That's another nice wildflower. Again, easy to grow. That's a typical form. And then occasionally you can find albino or albida forms. Fringe trees. We went over this at supper last night, and I reread this article thoroughly. It mentioned nothing about dogs eating the trees. Does anyone know anything about that, Gene?
Ha ha ha.
Its manner of growth is orderly. It is free from attacks of insects and disease. I guess dogs do not fall into that. But this is a shot from Wintergreen during one of the nature symposiums, and just a beautiful native tree. And then if it's allowed to grow, it blooms with the native azaleas and things. Oh, here's another thing. It said insect-free. Maybe not. Our emerald ash borer that has destroyed all the ash in West Virginia and neighboring states. Ash trees are olive family. Fringe tree is olive family, and people are looking for it to possibly hop over to this on bad news. So last year I gave this after the flowers, I gave this just a preemptive drench of imidacloprid. And then here's article on bog gardens. So what I like with bog plants, they're pretty, but this is one group of plants that do not get the pests, they eat the pests. So you can't go wrong with that scenario. And also, some of the native orchids do well in ball gardens. This is orange fringed orchid, and again, here's our hummingbirds stopping by. And again, butterflies pollinate. They pick up these pollen sacs and move them from flower to flower, plant to plant, but kind of a comical deal there with a head full of pollen. But just great. Baby praying mantis, kind of seeing what's going on here. Sundew, threadleaf sundew, the resident toads. And here's someone living dangerously, monkeying around the lid of a pitcher. However, this did not get consumed by the pitcher plant. It did not fall in. The robber fly came and took care of that. So you got lots of stuff going on in these cement mixing tubs. I have 3 of them full of my bulb plants, and again, you can lollygag around while David is mowing the lawn and stuff and watch these plants. And you gotta get your shot somehow. It's not by mowing the lawn. Native rhododendrons are happy in bogs. It's cranberry, so they love a boggy environment. And then winter, a little bit showy with some snow. Well, go from the bog to the sun. Again, never set this thing out, but common mullein, when they come up where it's in a nice spot, we leave them. If not, just pull the rosette out. But common mullins are great. And then once this matures here, they kind of become woody. And there's a period of weeks where the downy woodpeckers just work those mullein spikes, I guess to their heart's content, it's my assumption. But must be bugs and things in there, but they just, at a certain time, bingo, there's the downy woodpeckers. And then here's one came up right here by the back door and also looks like a good spot. And then here's another sentence. Like many of our beautiful native plants that are all too often neglected, 2 of the finest perennial lobelias, Cardinalis syphilitica, are rarely seen in gardens. That's one of the few times that I kind of disagree with that writing. And here's another article, because our lobelias come in red, white, and blue. They like stream sides. So, second article about just lobelias. Here's the cardinal flower, and of course that's a butterfly and hummingbird magnet. Here's the blue, great blue lobelia. And then the white is more diminutive lobelia, downy lobelia, but they're all grow in our area and make terrific plants. Now, about the rarely used, they have just run amok in our garden. So in the summer, the sidewalk is solid red lobelia forest. Up along one of the hoop houses, solid blue lobelia forest, and then we just pull them out as they need to be pulled. Hummingbirds in your garden, and a list of plants that go with it. Here's our southeast native rhododendron prunifolium with hummingbird visitor there. Here's the hummingbird venturing into this cardinal flower forest. I mean, they've not gotten lost yet, but it's dense in there. And then is everybody stocked up on their chemicals?
Yeah.
So here's the ad for DDT. And I guess
What is that?
great
Better-
acclaim
better
that
living
this
through
was.
chemistry?
Yes.
Wasn't that the old expression?
Yep.
So we know
Yep.
what happened there, you know. had issues with our birds of prey, but they're back and better than before. It's an osprey family. And since we're talking about native, well, you have native plants, native birds, and you got native animals. And as long as these pictures here of the deer are outside the fence, they're just awesome, cute as can be. Inside the deer fence, get them out of there. See, these guys are great over there. And we have our mole and vole patrol, night duty, barred owl, and then here's our we've had a resident red-shouldered hawk since I've lived here, since I've lived on our place. But here it is on our pergola, hunting and all, and they will take care of many a mole and vole. And there he goes with one right there. And sparrowhawks occasionally will, I think they fly in and land just to show, but it's like a cat. They say, here's what we got here, and then off they go. And then in one newsletter article, I was hard at work sitting in the garden, and anyway, here comes a family of skunks, and the mama must have known the openings in this deer fence at the ground. In one, walked by me. So the thing with skunks, they're easy to photograph, because who's gonna go up and mess with them? You know, they're like, come on. So I see where they're headed, went up, got positioned, and sure enough, they just came right by me. And I got my only and best skunk pictures ever. There's the little guys, just fall, and then never saw them again. And this is not my place, but this fox, my only fox pictures was in Michigan, but they're too cute to leave out of putting all these animals in. And has anybody ever used native azaleas in their garden? So here's going through all the native azaleas and such for gardening. This is outside Elkins, West Virginia. Drove by this abandoned field, and there you are, self-sowing and taking over an abandoned pasture, flame azaleas. And one of the early plant explorers, I don't know if it was William Bartram or anyway, some of that group, one labeled flame azalea as the new world's most beautiful shrub, and tough to argue that. That's the year of the cicada there. And canescens from a little bit south and east of our area. Bakeri here. Rose shell azalea from wintergreen. And Bali sods, that's in mid-June with the rose shell azaleas. And you can see the climate. The branches can only grow one way, and the rose shell azaleas in these areas are driftwood when they're in the wind. But that's also something when you talk about growing good rhodos and azaleas. Not everyone is happy being in a warmer spot than where they grow. That's probably one of our, well, we only have one, because they do not take our warm bit of humidity, mild winters and such. They just as soon be up on the mountaintop there. And then a favorite is sweet azalea, rhododendron arborescens, and I call this our trout stream azalea. It grows on our fast-moving mid to high elevation streams, and if you're trout fishing, chances are in June you'll be fishing beside this. Here's the New River Bridge in our new national park, New River National Park, arborescent blooming along the river there. Let's see, now Sandra, did you bring Siberian iris years ago?
I probably did.
Okay. I'm pretty sure this is it, and it is outstanding. So anyway, have you thought of Siberian iris? Yes. So again, at our meeting, see, invaluable. And this, yeah, so anyway, which we call this Sandra. So, this is just outstanding. I mean, we have a few others, but this is just that shade of blue. That's about all I can say is outstanding. And I guess every publication has to have one typo. So, anyway, that got by the spell checker, because I think they mean butterfly, not utterfly. And that's for summer, late June through July, you know, just, again, out there growing in hay fields and roadsides. Terrific garden plant. It's a milkweed. Milkweeds attract monarchs. This is my Pittsburgh Steeler caterpillar, black and gold. But, you know, terrific. And then the seed pods open and you have a nice wispy display there before they take off. So what it takes for a wildflower garden, and, you know, do not put a plant where it's not going to be happy, basically. And then over time, I've even been with wildflower collectors. Maybe I had qualms. So anyway, you know, basically get permission, get permits, roadside rescues or, you know, construction rescues and things. And that's all well and good. The landowner can give you permission, but if the tenant does not agree with your purposes, then you got problems. So if you want to go to that bush, you better make friends here. Or use your unknown sprinting speed. But yeah, when people think of wildflowers, usually they think, oh, all the spring things. So those are great. They make a terrific display. Phlox, woodland phlox, bluebells, trilliums, and then there's, again, a whole textbook of things. This is Jeffersonia for Thomas Jefferson. This is twin leaf, and noted by 2 leaves. It's a poppy. It's in the poppy family, so you're looking at bud, open, 2 days, petal drop. So it's nice to have several, you can see here, nice to have several and robust clumps where you can get 2 to almost 3 weeks of bloom. But an individual flower, you better be out there to see it or you're done till next year. Large flowered bellwort. Again, did not set a row of wild geraniums out. And zebra swallowtails, whose host plant is across the fence on as pawpaw plants, is their host. Violets are a nuisance, but this is long spurred violet, which is not quite so rambunctious. Dwarf delphiniums, phlox, bluebells. Another, this is a primrose, this is shooting stars. They're very nice. Dutchman's breeches. And then here's we have lots of trilliums in our area. Hillside, here's the trilliums. But that's a great display. This is the late Ron Brown's trillium, Hillside at his house, which unbelievable. And then we've got red trilliums, sessile trilliums, Some of them throw some gorgeous foliage. Green dragon in the Jack in the Pulpit family. And where do more green dragons come from? Right there. There's our poppies again. And then an article on trailing arbutus. Has anyone seen that in anywhere? How to root cuttings, seed of trailing arbutus. And that highly fragrant, it's a rhododendron family, it's a heat. And so I tried that once, and that is so, it's like pink lady slippers, so demanding in acid, this, that, and the other. Said I'm not going to fiddle with them, but this gives you step by step if you wanted to. Lady slippers, our yellows are quite easy in the right spot. And some with tissue culture now, these things are produced, mass produced, not dug. And we're gonna just substitute these black and white pictures with some of my shots here. There's the pink lady slipper, and the mountain lady slipper from the Sierra Nevada, right there. Showy lady slippers, they're in West Virginia's highest bogs, and then it's Minnesota's state flower. They become more common northward, right there. And then here's the yellows with the shooting stars in the background. And then the California, the last year they started using color pictures. So this is from California, this shot here, with a black background. But our yellows are terrific. And I've got a couple new hybrids now. Just like the azalea people hybridize Appalachia's azaleas with the European. This is yellow and Kentucky lady slippers and such hybridized with Chinese lady slippers. And then here's again bird articles. And it is exciting when they come through. We have resident warblers of different habitats, but in the spring and fall, and we're not on a flyway, but still, these things will trickle through. Hooded warbler, northern parula warbler, magnolia warblers all come through. This is a resident blue-winged warbler in our brushy areas. Yellowthroat down by the pond in the wet brushy land. Black-throated green again. Yellow warblers along our wood edges. Here's the spring version. There's the fall. They all come back through and mostly in a very dull plumage. And that's in Joe Pye weed. And the native clematis. Here's leather flower, which grows in Virginia, West Virginia, and much of the east. And again, there's our pollinators. Here's the seed pods, which are kind of attractive. And then this is an invasive clematis from Asia. This is down in our southern part of our state, but it, as many invasives do, just swamps whatever it grows on. And we'll whip through the Donald Wyman. Here on our auction, there's your double file with the flowers going down the branches. This is maple leaf viburnum, a native, arrowwood, a native, and I don't know many people who could sit and do that. This is Viburnum rafinescianum, which again, you get these native nurseries that specialize. They have, and the birds eat most of the viburnum berries. Here's a red-eyed vireo eating rafinescianum berries. There's your double file. And then they just love these things. You can just sit and do a show on that, and monarch will drop by. And then finally, we're gonna wrap up. Here's the Victory Garden articles of what I thought I was getting of gardening. So keep the kitchen basket filled. Okay, there you go. Here we go. Now, I couldn't get they better the pose in my picture. So there we are. Here's the plan. Small, medium, large, just every, this used to be the azalea seedling. I never could get a recipe to use azaleas, so now we got this, and now we got lots of recipes for this stuff here. Herbs. And then, of course, again, they do editorialize a little bit in that magazine. And articles suited for kids. And we set out nesting material, that's our horsehair. And bird houses. So, anyway, native, like last night, non-native, everything's great. Mix and match is terrific, but there are just worlds of plants out there. I think the gardens and plants may have changed. The wood materials that are in these articles is now plastic and composite, but gardening hasn't changed. So, the right plants in the right spots, pay attention to generally just a few details and you should be fine. Hopefully, everyone gets the right amount of snow for their own personal pleasure. And that's all I have. And we beat 3 o'clock. Okay, any questions on anything?
It's Atlantic Nursery, not American Nursery. It's Atlantic
Atlantic
Nursery. That's the
Oh, okay, well,
Sorry, it's an A word, you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
that's
a-
good.
It's in the Maryland, Pennsylvania area.
What kind of camera do you use, Doug? Camera? Can you talk a little bit about the camera you use to produce these?
Oh, my goodness, okay, this spans 40 years, so, okay, some of that is scanned slides, some are my phone, wherever it is, phone, slides, and then digital pictures. So I have a Canon 7D Mark II, and I have a 100mm macro lens, and then for the birds is a 100 to 400mm lens with a 1.4 converter, which makes it a 600 at the top end. But either the telephoto or my macro lens on cameras. Yep.
Thank you.
But these phones, see, I don't think you could pick out the phone pictures. You might see the dullness on the scanned slides, but these phones are amazing. That's it. Yeah.
Our IT man is getting into photography. Where do I buy a 1.4 converter? Christmas is coming.
I always use Adorama out of New York City.
Emailing myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's for
Thank
all
you.
my career. I've used Adorama, and much of it's used. If they have something rated excellent to excellent plus, it is all but new and 40% off.
Love that number. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Just never know what's about right now. Thank you.
Yep, and that's right downtown. I drove past it once on one of my New York chapter trips. So they're an inbox store down in Manhattan or somewhere downtown. But anyway, they have terrific service. I've never had a complaint, and what they say is what it is as far as quality. And of course, brand new is
Thank you.
like that. Okay, all right, well, thank you again.
I think you did the Home Garden magazine fine tradition. I think, we've had plants, we've had birds, we've had butterflies, and as I said, some of your photography is incredible.
What I gotta say is David and I talked last night about history is not Colonial Williamsburg. History things are going by the wayside. Well, not today. So,
No, good.
And once
Yep.
again, we'd like to thank
Okay.
you with an early bird. Early.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
keep saying, I don't know why I say that, but,
well, that's a no fail right there.
and, we'd like to thank both their speakers. Thank you, Peggy, for last night. And thank you for bringing Doug especially. I think we certainly took advantage of his services. As a last minute, there are some P4M plants left. There are some books left. I think both David Taylor and I and Jeannie would love not to have to take anything home with us. So please have at it.